From Big Idea Productions comes VeggieTales, Sunday morning values, Saturday morning fun. For those who were born from 1990 to the 2010s, you have probably at least heard of VeggieTales, if not watched it. I personally grew up watching VeggieTales. And today, I'm going to be having a little more fun. I'm going to be reviewing kids' movies. And these movies are VeggieTales. My 10 favorite VeggieTales movies. Welcome back, Extremely Intelligent Lambs, and I'll be your host today, Peter Wary. And this is... For those who haven't seen VeggieTales before, let me quickly explain. VeggieTales is a kids show that came out in the 90s. The first episode came out in 1993. And it follows talking vegetables as they teach Bible lessons and valuable skills to kids, such as, in the first episode, not being scared and knowing that God's the bigger man. He's going to protect you. Basically, these vegetables are all going on these fun adventures, reenacting Bible stories or stories from pop culture, and putting a twist on it that makes it really funny. The first, you're going to see through these episodes as I rank them what I'm talking about. So without further ado, let's quickly jump in. Number 10, King George and the Ducky. King George and the Ducky came out in 2000. This is very interesting. Now, I grew up watching all the VeggieTales, and so this is my introduction to the story of King David, and I'm not going to explain it just because I know kids sometimes watch this, so I'm not going to, even that technically they can easily pick up a Bible and see. But basically, I'll just explain it in the King George way. King George sees someone else with a duck that he wants. He loves this duck. So he sends the person off to war so he can steal their duck. For those who are Christian and have read the Bible, you know what I'm talking about. For those who have not read the Bible, just change basically it's easy as just change the name of King George to David and change the duck to a woman, and there you go. That's basically what that story is about. But this is a very dark story, and they made it into such a fun little kid story with some hilarious songs, and I can't help but hum some of the songs in this because it's a lot of fun. But the weird thing about it is then when I started reading, I of course heard that Bible verse, but it wasn't until I was older that I clicked the two and two together and realized, oh wait a second, King George and the Ducky is the same story. Very interesting. So if you haven't checked out this one, check out this one. It's a lot of fun. If you have kids, put them in with this. If you have grandchildren too, feel free to put them in with King George and the Ducky because it's a lot of fun and it's a cute little story about a king wanting a rubber ducky and loving baths. Very funny, very cute story. Number 9, Josh and the Big Wall. Josh and the Big Wall has probably the most sung VeggieTales song in it at all, which is Keep Walking. Very fun song. Anyone who's ever watched VeggieTales before probably have at least got the song stuck in their head once or twice. It's a lot of fun. It's a hilarious song. The lesson of this story is trusted in God, even if he says to do something sounds really stupid, because if you believe in God, crazy things can happen. It's a good story. As an adaptation of Joshua and the Big Wall, it's pretty good. Number 8, Lyle the Friendly Viking. So Lyle the Kindly Viking is a very hilarious story. This is how I was introduced to Hamlet, or in this version, it's called Omelet. It has this hilarious moment. This episode's about sharing and how it's important to share with your neighbors and all that kind of stuff. It's a lot of fun to watch. But basically, what's hilarious is that it begins with a story that is a joke off of Hamlet, where it's like, to share or not to share? That is the question. And it's a lot of fun to watch. If you haven't seen this one yet, the songs in it is pretty good. There's a lot of good moments in it. So if you haven't seen this one yet, please check out this one because it's really good. Number 7, Larry Boy and the Bad Apple. My history with the Larry Boy movies are, you're going to see the other ones up further on the list. But with this one Larry Boy episode, the first time I ever watched it was right after one of my little sisters was born. And so I have really fond memories. It came out in 2006, right around the time she was born, and I just remembered how, I think it was 2007 that she was born or something. I watched it at a friend's house, and it was just like, this is fun. This is a very fun episode. The songs in it are really good. The lesson of this story is not giving in to addiction for anyone who celebrates Lent. This is a great episode to watch right now in Lent because it's dealing with temptations and giving up stuff and choosing to in the story, Larry Boy has to give up chocolate because he's running into the problem of he's too addicted to chocolate. So he keeps getting this temptation to eat more and more chocolate. So he's choosing to give up chocolate, just like how people who celebrate Lent, we give up stuff for Lent for the reason that we want to try to get over some of our addictions, stuff like that. So it's a really good story for anyone who's, right now in Lent, because it's dealing with that exact topic. So if you haven't seen it yet, feel free to watch this, show it to your kids or your grandkids. Number 6, where is God when I'm scared? Where is God when I'm scared is the very first VeggieTales. It came in 1993, and yeah, it's really good. It's probably one of the most memorable of all the VeggieTales. This is another one with a lot of good songs. God is bigger than the boogeyman. Oh no, what we're gonna do? Different songs like that. There's some really good songs in it. Funny enough, actually, this is one I didn't grow up fully watching. I didn't watch until I was like 7 at a friend's house because my parents didn't own this one. It was just because they didn't. It wasn't because they didn't like it. It was more just that we didn't own that one episode. So the one I grew up on, you're gonna see a little bit further on this list. But both with Joshua and the Big Wall and with Where's God When I'm Scared, I actually didn't ever have that at my house and all. So I would only watch it if I went to someone else's. So overall, this episode, as most people probably could already guess, it's about being scared and learning to say, hey, God is bigger than what I'm afraid of. And just choosing to pray to God and allow God to deal with it. Very good story. If you're dealing with a kid that's having the problem of being feeling like there's a monster in the closet, there's a monster in his bed, and all this stuff, it's a pretty good episode to watch because it does a good job of showing how God is bigger than the boogeyman and that he is watching after you. Number 5, Larry Boy and the Rumor Weed. Larry Boy and the Rumor Weed. I grew up on, and it's good. It's a lot of fun. This one came out in 1999. So by the time I was old enough to start watching movies, it already had come out and I was watching it. It's good. A lot of fun. As you guys can probably already guess, the story is about rumors and how they spread like weeds. Basically, in the story, this weed, who's a live weed, don't ask, it has a mouth and all, it's weird, but this is VeggieTales, and this weed overhears someone gossiping about another person, and chooses to spread this so the whole town soon starts gossiping about this person. As the gossip grows, the weeds grow too. So soon there's weeds all over town. It's a very fun movie. It's a very fun episode. The songs in this episode is fun, especially I'm the rumor weed. It's just a fun video. It's just a fun movie. It's just a fun song. Overall, if you haven't seen this one yet, and especially if you deal with problems with your kids spreading rumors, it's a good episode to say, hey, look, rumors can spread like weeds. Rumors are not a good thing. It harms other people. Don't spread rumors. It's a very good story. If you haven't seen it yet, please check out this episode. Number 4, Larry Boy and the Fib from Outer Space. Now we're on another Larry Boy episode. This is Larry Boy, the first Larry Boy episode, Larry Boy and the Fib from Outer Space. This one's really, really fun. As most of you guys can probably guess, a lot of these titles say exactly what they're about in the title. This one's about fibs, lots. And just like with the rumor read, what happens is, as this person keeps coming up with bigger and bigger lies, the fib grows bigger and bigger. So it starts out with this little, tiny alien fib, and then it just grows bigger and bigger until it's a couple stories tall, and is like a big monster. And the character has to learn to not lie, has to admit the truth, and you figure out, his parents are not that mad at him after they figure out that it was him who broke the plate. And it's an important lesson on, sometimes you need to just say, yeah, I'm sorry, I was the one who did it, forgive me, I'm sorry. So if you haven't seen this one yet, and especially, again, as I keep saying with all of them, if you are running into problems with your kids, with lying and all, show them this episode and say, hey, look, if you ever feel like you have to lie to protect yourself from us, don't, because the fact of the matter is, we're going to love you, we just want to know. Number 3, Dave and the Great Pickle. Dave and the Great Pickle it's a fun episode. This one actually doesn't say in the title, but the lesson of the episode is on how, again, the whole thing with God is bigger than the boogeyman type thing, where it's believe in God and you will be able to do big things. As you can guess, the story is about King David, well, before he was king, but when he defeated Goliath. For anyone who doesn't know that story, basically this small farmer, this small shepherd boy, brought some food to his brothers who were at war with, basically, in the story of David and Goliath, the Philistines are attacking the Israelites. And the Philistines have this big giant, and he keeps mocking the Israelites and saying, "Hey, one of you guys come out and fight. We'll end the battle if you guys can defeat me." And of course, I mean, these are the Israelites. They are not that strong, so they couldn't. So they were too afraid to. Basically, what happens is David, this little shepherd boy, goes out and says, "I will fight you." And the guy just mocks. And so he picks up a stone, using his slingshot, and kills Goliath. And the whole point is that no one thought that David could do it because he was just a small little shepherd boy. But he said, I believed in God. And because of that, he was able to do it. So that's basically what the story is. Just change it up with a couple other things. Make it a giant pickle instead of a big giant man. Instead of making it so... Just a difference like that. Overall, it's a good episode. If you haven't seen this one yet, it's one of the first episodes that ever come out. And it's a lot of fun. It's an enjoyable one. And I strongly recommend you guys check it out. Number 2, Minnesota Cuke and the Search for Samson's Hairbrush. I remember this being the first VeggieTales movie that my parents got on DVD. I don't even know if it comes on VHS, but this episode is a lot of fun. This episode, as I was talking about before, about how I grew up watching VeggieTales. With this episode, this is how I was introduced to Indiana Jones. And then once I was old enough to watch Indiana Jones itself, I watched it and I was kind of laughing because it felt like it was a copycat off of Minnesota Cuke and the Search for Samson's Hairbrush, because just replaced with snakes instead of worms and stuff like that. But it's almost the exact same story. It's kind of funny, but also they do a lot of changes. This episode is on sticking up to your bullies, and does a really good job. Basically, in the story, Minnesota Cuke gets put on the task of trying to find Samson's hairbrush. For those who don't know who Samson is, Samson is the Old Testament version of Heracles. He's a really strong man for the Bible, who basically what happens is that one day this woman tricks him and manages to cut his hair, and he has to learn that he's actually more than just the hair. His strength actually comes from God and not from hair. Anyways, but in this story, basically, it's actually Samson's hairbrush got the power of, Samson. And so, at least they believe that. So they're trying to find this hairbrush so that they can, so this guy can get all this power, the bully in the story. And as I talked about with the real story of Samson, that the power did not come from his hair, it came from God. So at the end of the story, a little bit of a spoiler, but we all know this is coming. It's not actually the hairbrush that gives the people power. It's, God that gives the power. So the story is about sticking up for yourself against bullying. Very good story. If your kids or your grandkids or anyone are dealing with bullying, recommend this one. It's a really good episode. It's a lot of fun. It's an Indiana Jones for kids that has vegetables in it, and it's a lot of fun to watch. And honestly, every single time I hear Indiana Jones, I will always think of Minnesota Cuke instead. Number 1, Are You My Neighbor? This is my first and favorite episode of VeggieTales, Are You My Neighbor? For those who cannot figure out what this episode is about, based on the name, it's about loving your neighbor. This episode is very, 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 very strange. That's what I enjoy about it. So the first episode is about one of my favorite Bible verses, and that is the Bible verse of the Good Samaritan. Basically, the story of the Good Samaritan goes like this. This man comes up and tries to test Jesus by saying, "Who is my neighbor?" And Jesus gives this parable. There was this man who was beaten up by thieves and left to die on the side of the road. But 3 people walked by him that day. One being a priest, the other one being a Levite, and the third being a Samaritan. The first 2 walked straight by, not bothering because they had to get on their way. But the Samaritan stopped, took care of the man, brought him to an inn, and paid for him to stay there until he was better. And then Jesus asked, who there was the true neighbor? And the man had to admit that yes, it was the Samaritan. For those who may not understand, the whole thing was that the Jews and the Samaritans were like, they were not. They hated each other. So it was a big thing for Jesus to say, this person that you hate are the ones that's going to, those are the people who are your true neighbors. Those are the people you have to love. So basically, the story, just take that story, instead you make it the pot people and the shoe people. And so one group has pots on their heads and one group has shoes on their heads. And these two towns are at war with each other, always throwing pots and shoes at it. And one day, this shoe man goes out for a walk, and he gets attacked by thieves while out, and thrown in a hole. And you see people from the shoe land come down on their morning stroll, and there's a love story, there's like song numbers, he asks them, can you help me up from this hole? And they're like, oh, I'm way too busy. And then they sing a song about being way too busy. So clearly showing that they're not way too busy. They could have easily just pulled him up from the hole instead of just singing the song. But then there's one member from the pot city who comes out and comes upon him and helps him up, takes him back to the hospital, and everyone doesn't understand why he would do this. And he explains that he should love his neighbor, and that when you look deeper, there's more than just a pot and a shoe. Basically, they all learn the lesson of, yeah, let's love our neighbors. And instead of throwing pots and shoes at each other, they start throwing flowers and candy. Very cute little story, very fun. Then, the second half of it is spoof off of Star Trek. Basically, Junior the Asparagus has to learn to love his weird-looking neighbor who he looks weird, but in the end, he's actually a good person. And basically what happens is there's these two weird... She gets picked up by a spaceship. On the spaceship, there's these two weird guys who are just, goofing around, being weird. And they keep making jokes about how they could eat a whole house. They could eat all this. And how they could eat a house. They could eat a carnival. You get the point. It's like, okay, you guys are weird. And then what happens is there's a... Not joking when I say this. There is a meteor-sized popcorn ball coming towards them. And the only thing they can think to do is to send those two guys out to eat the popcorn ball all the way up. And that's what happens. And then they learn to love their neighbors and see the value in people who want to eat like a planet-sized ball of popcorn. Very strange story, but it's a lot of fun. And it's my favorite episode of VeggieTales because this was, in my mind, the oldest VeggieTales. I only later on realized that actually, Where's God When I'm Scared is actually older than this, but I believe this might be the second VeggieTales episode, or the third. But it's a lot of fun. It's a very fun episode. Enjoyable, very enjoyable. If you haven't seen this one, especially if you're dealing with like your kids, not being a bully, but saying, I have my friend group, and I'm not going to try to make friends with other people. Try talking to them about, hey, how about you, try to make new friends. And show them this episode. And they might say, hey, maybe I should. So in conclusion, guys, I didn't even talk about the silly songs. The silly songs, although, can make a whole list of themselves. But what I did talk about, do you guys agree? Would you guys have different episodes? I know there's some other episodes like The Grapes of Wrath and God Wants Me to Forgive. And episodes of that are also really, really good, but I didn't put them on this list because I kept it to the top 10 of my favorite ones. Tell me your top 10s. Leave in the comments. Remember, try for 10, get at least 5. If you guys don't understand what I'm talking about, you can check out some of my old videos where I talk about more, but basically I'm talking about try to invite 10 friends and try to get at least 5 of them to subscribe so we can grow the channel more. Remember, 100 subscribers, we're going to do those. I'm going to answer 100 questions of you guys'. Overall, thank you guys for watching. This has been the Movie Night Review. Peter Wary, signing off.